What's up, everybody? We are back with another week of great material for you. So at this point, you should have already either looked over kind of the first few pages of ManQ in Chapter 4, or take the time to watch Crash Course's basic video on supply and demand. You can find that on Blackboard or down in the comments below, or not the comments, but the description below. I've got that posted, so go ahead and watch that real quick and then come over here. All right. Now you've done it. All right. So today we're going to talk about shifts in supply and demand, what this looks like, and ultimately how this affects our equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. But I don't want to get ahead of myself too much yet. First, let's start with demand, and let's start with what a shift in demand looks like. So you can see here, we've got two examples. D0, we can kind of consider our original point here on D0. And the curve, the supply curve here, and as it goes to D1, it shifts leftward. It shifts leftward. And notice that at every price, at every Y value, a leftward shifting demand curve, there's less quantity demanded. Less quantity demanded. So if you're looking at this price, we move from here to here. At this price, we move from here to here. At this price, we move from here to here. So we're moving left, right? We're moving left as we make less and less, or we buy less and less. There's less and less quantity demanded at every single price. Again, demand is the relationship between price and quantity demanded, so a shift in demand is a change in this whole relationship. And we've kind of got the opposite going on over here as we move rightward. This shows an expansion in demand. So again, at every price, people want more, people want more. The curve moves rightward as at every price people want more and more quantity demanded. So this is what it looks like. Let's dive into what kinds of things might shift demand. Remembering our top one here, the price of the good itself doesn't change the whole curve. It just moves us along the curve, just changes the quantity demanded, right? Just changes quantity demanded, not the whole demand relationship. Okay. So here is your whole list of everything that can influence buyers, that can shift demand for us. So let's dive in. First and foremost, income. So we've got two different kinds of effects with income. First of all, income, should make pretty basic sense. As you make more money, you get more money. You get a nice check in the mail from the government or from grandma on your birthday, whatever it is. You want to buy more stuff, right? But you don't want to buy more of just everything. You don't want to buy more of just everything. In this example I've got here, I've got two kinds of ramen. I've got a nice bowl of ramen you might find at a fancy restaurant, or a very, very top-level home cook, right? And then I've got the kind of ramen that maybe you guys are more familiar with, right? Maybe I was more familiar with it too in my college career. Your cup of noodles ramen, kind of 50 cents a cup, just getting by. So notice I have the words normal and inferior over these. These are two vocab words out of ManQ. A normal good, as you get more income, demand shifts rightward. People want more stuff, more normal goods when they get more money. With inferior goods, as you get more money, you buy less of it. So with this ramen example, you got a nice raise, probably not going to spend as much of that new money on the cup of noodles. You'd rather go out to the nice restaurant, right? So income is going to affect demand. Also, the prices of related goods. So we've got two kinds of related goods. We've got substitutes and complements. So substitutes, you see up here, Coke and Pepsi. Well, the price of a substitute is going to move in the same direction as demand. Here's what I mean. So let's say generally you buy Coke, but you don't really prefer one over the other too much, right? They're about the same. Well, let's say the price of Pepsi drops. It goes from, whatever, $4 a 12 pack to, we'll call it 50 cents a 12 pack. Wow, what a steal, right? Well, maybe Coke doesn't look quite as good anymore. You'd almost rather switch, might substitute towards Pepsi. So when I say substitute, I'm just talking about a good that you can trade for, right? It's a similar good, right? So as the price of a substitute goes down, so does your demand for the original good. As the price of Pepsi falls, we buy less Coke because we're switching towards the Pepsi. And as the price of Coke falls, or as the price of Pepsi rises, we buy more Coke, right? Because it's become relatively cheaper, relatively the new cheaper alternative, right? So that's how substitutes work broadly. How about complements? I've got a picture of a peanut butter and jelly over here on the right. So your jelly, if it becomes much, much more expensive, what are you going to do with peanut butter? Well, the pear has become more expensive, right? And some people have to have both. Some people have to have both peanut butter and jelly. So if the jelly becomes more expensive, you buy less peanut butter too, not just less jelly. And if the jelly becomes much, much, much cheaper, you buy more peanut butter and more jelly because the pear has become relatively more inexpensive. So when I say complement, I'm really just talking about something you buy with another good. You consume it with another good. Okay, so there's prices of related goods. So, seasonal taste. I've got a nice graph here. It shows how over seasons we produce different amounts of ice cream. And again, production isn't demand, but I imagine our demand curve for ice cream, not demand curve, but as I imagine this graph for ice cream looks pretty darn similar for purchases, right? We buy more in June, we buy more in July. When it's hot, we eat more ice cream. When it's cold, we eat less, right? This is taste. This is changes in taste, changes in preferences, right? And it's not just yearly changes, right? It's not just yearly changes. Am I going to wear the same clothes that my dad did when he was my age? No, right? I'm not wearing a lot of neon. It's not the 80s anymore. It's not the 90s anymore. Fads change, preferences change. And this is going to change what we buy, even what we eat, The American diet's probably changed quite a bit over the course of the last 30 years. So tastes can change. This next graph shows the initial unemployment claims as kind of COVID ran in, started to becoming a pretty big problem early this spring. So the point that I'm driving at here is expectations. Expectations. So if you were working in an industry that could have been hurt by COVID, so say the restaurant industry, and you saw, man, California, New York, these different places are shutting down all their restaurants, and I work at a restaurant here in Kentucky, man, maybe I'm next. Maybe my job is going to go next. Well, as more and more people started filing for unemployment, you're probably realizing this may hit me. So you need to brace for a shift down in income, right? Your expectations about the future are a decrease in income. So this is really going to behave the same way that a shift in income does. If you expect to lose money in the future, well, then you're going to save today. You're going to buy more inferior goods, buy more cheap stuff, and buy less normal goods, buy less expensive things. And it's not just income. Expectation about future prices can also have this effect, right? Expectations about future prices. So I have the example of a gas pump on this one. So if you think about the price of gas, right? The price of gas. Well, if you get to the pump and it's $3 a gallon, and it has been, you know, $1.80 or whatever pretty recently, you're gonna say, man, that's really high. I bet next week it's not gonna be so high. $3 a gallon, too rich for my blood. I'm not gonna buy today because I have expectations that future prices will fall. Expectations that future prices will fall. So I won't buy as much today. But if I expect, man, I show up to the gas tank, it's $1 a gallon, I'm not just gonna buy a little bit, I'm gonna top her off, then I'm gonna call mom and dad and say, oh my God, there's a sale on gas at Kroger, you gotta get down here, bring the gas tanks, you know, we're loading up for winter, right? So you take advantage of low prices because you expect in the future that these prices are gonna come back up and you're not gonna have this opportunity to buy, right? And last but not least, the number of buyers. The number of buyers. As you add more buyers to a market, you increase demand. This should make pretty perfect sense. This is because market demand is the sum of individual demands. In this example here, at $2, Catherine wants 4 ice cream cones. At $2, Nicholas wants 3. So at $2, the market together wants 7. A total of 7. But you can easily add another person, you know, whoever it is. Add me, Kevin. Well, at $2, I'd be willing to buy an ice cream cone. Well, guess what? That's going to shift this whole demand curve this way for the market as we add more and more buyers. All right. So that's what can shift demand. Well, I hear you asking, what about supply? Shifts in supply are going to look just like our shifts in demand. The whole curve is going to move one direction or the other. At each price, in a shift leftward, less can be produced, less quantity can be produced, and in a shift rightward, at each price, more can be produced, more can be produced. And I think if we dive into some of the different things that can shift supply, this will make a little more sense. So, variables that influence sellers. Here's our whole list. Again, changing price just is going to change the quantity supplied, not change the whole supply curve, right? Just moving along the curve, changing quantity supplied. So, we have, first off, input prices. So here I've got a picture of a very old machine. Anybody know what this is? You? No? It's a cotton gin. It's a cotton gin. Well, I think a cotton gin is a great example of a change in input prices. So in the late 1700s, Eli Whitney comes up with this new machine, the cotton gin, and this makes it much, much easier to produce cotton. Well, no surprise, we're going to have a rightward shift in the cotton market, right? We're able to make more at every price. It's much cheaper to produce cotton. Big technology shift. But it doesn't just have the technology effect, right? Obviously the market for cotton, everything became cheaper. But cotton's not a final good, as we call it. It's not something that's usually considered ready for consumption. You put cotton in something else. Anybody know what cotton goes into? Clothes. Cotton goes into clothes. These right here, I think this is polyester, but you get the idea. The t-shirt's cotton. So you put cotton into clothes. So in the 1700s, it became much cheaper and cheaper to produce cotton. Well, those input prices falling also affected the market for clothes as it became cheaper and cheaper to make clothes as well. Anybody know who was making the clothes at the time? Well, it was a lot in Western Europe, specifically England, making a lot of clothes called textiles at the time. We've got expectations here. So if you're a toy maker, you might expect the prices of toys to go up in the winter time. I've got a picture of a Christmas tree here. So if you expect prices to go up once winter time comes, then you might produce a whole lot of toys in expectation of these big price increases. Got to take advantage of it, right? Take advantage of the high prices that are coming. And if you foresee low prices coming, well, say Christmas is tomorrow, you know pretty soon nobody's going to want to be buying toys, right? Well, if that's the case, what do you need to do today? Put stuff on sale. So you get your after Christmas sales and stuff like that, taking advantage of prices that are still somewhat high before they kind of trough out in the weeks following Christmas. And the last thing that can shift supply, just like with demand, the number of suppliers, right? So here from the book, we've got market supply as the sum of individual supplies. So at $2, bin makes 3 cones. $2, Jerry makes 4. So for the market supply at $2, we are able to make 7. How about that? If we add another supplier, maybe a different brand, maybe Haagen-Dazs or somebody like that, yeah, and they're able to make another 3, then it's going to shift this whole curve out, rightward, so that, you know, about here, they're able to make that 11. They're able to make more. At every price, they're able to make more as new suppliers enter a market. Well, that about sums it up. That's just about everything that's going to affect supply and demand. That's what's going to shift it left and right. I think it's about time for us to take a peek at what this might look like in equilibrium. Ooh, equilibrium. I know, it's exciting stuff. So let's throw it over to me on the board. So, now that you all understand what can shift supply and demand, let's look at what it might look like on our supply and demand diagram, our supply and demand model. Okay, so to start, as always, we need price on the y-axis. On the x-axis, we need quantity. We'll start with very simple stuff for now, so we'll just have a nice upward sloping supply curve and a nice downward sloping demand curve. And a quick review. Supply is upward sloping because as price goes up, quantity supply goes up. The higher the price, the more suppliers will make. And demand is downward sloping because the higher the price, the less we want to buy. We want to buy more at lower prices. All right? Everybody understand that? Cool. Glad we're on the same page. So let's say that this is the market for, let's say this is the market for beer. How's that? You guys like beer? I like beer. So, we got our market for beer here, okay? And let's say that there's a drought. Oh my goodness, there is a drought. And we need to analyze the effect on beer. Specifically, this drought affects barley in the Midwest. Well, that's a price of an input, right? One of our changers of supply. So we can use 3 quick steps to figure out how we need to shift this bad boy. All right? First, we asked which curve. Second, we ask right or left. And last, we ask what effect. All right, so first things first, which curve does our drought affect in the market for beer? Well, we already said it's going to affect supply. And it's going to shift it leftward because at every price, we're able to make less beer. Does this make sense? At every price, we're able to make less. So it's all going to shift leftward. All right, let me grab this black marker over here. So originally, we were looking at this for our equilibrium, right? Equilibrium, of course, being the place where supply and demand come into balance. Yes? We can abbreviate this bad boy Q star and this one P star. But these have changed, right? Because of this drought, we now have a new Q star and a new P star, equilibrium price and quantity. Notice, the quantity sold has fallen, and the price that it sells at is higher. Does this make sense? We have a drought, it makes it harder to make beer. This is going to cause us to sell less beer at higher prices. That should make sense, right? It's harder to make beer, so we sell less of it at higher prices. All right. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. I'll wipe this board off. We'll work through a couple more examples together. All right, let's go again. Make another model. Again, we start with a basic graph. We put price on the y-axis. That's the one that goes up, yeah? Quantity on the x-axis. And we make our curves. Upward sloping, supply. Downward sloping, demand. Fair enough? Pretty straightforward, yes? So, for this example, we will make our market, let's call it Nike shoes. Nike shoes. Let's say a very strategic ad campaign on their part makes some Instagram influencers and some TikTok people make Nike shoes more popular. Nike shoes become more popular because of this strategic ad campaign. They've changed tastes. Yes? Well, let's work through our 3 steps. Which curve? Well, more popular, more buyers, more demand. Yes? Right or left? Well, at every price, they're going to be able to sell more because more people want more Nike shoes. So, shifting to the right. So let's draw our shift together. So, we had original equilibrium here. And our new one, our new P star and Q star, are out here. Our new Q star and P star, equilibrium price and quantity, are out here. So quantity has shifted this way, and price has shifted this way. So what effect did this ad campaign have? Well, it made Nike shoes more popular. This shifted demand rightward, increasing the number of shoes sold and increasing the price at which they sold. This should make pretty good intuitive sense, right? This makes sense. If something's more popular, it sells more items at higher prices. Fair enough? Fair enough. Well, thank you guys very much for tuning in. You'll have to catch me next week.